So if it feels like we've been in the first chapter of Mark for weeks, we have been in the first chapter of Mark for weeks. To recap what has happened so far, first, John the Baptist announces that Jesus is coming. Jesus is baptized. Jesus spends 40 days in the wilderness. Jesus calls Simon and his brother Andrew and James and his brother John to follow him. And if you remember last week, Jesus goes to the synagogue and casts out an unclean spirit. Today's reading continues right along with verse 29. As soon as they left the synagogue, and in the Greek, it's that immediately word again. Everything in Mark is immediately. So immediately as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. So from these verses, we know that brothers Simon and Andrew lived together along with Simon's mother-in-law. And we can guess also wives, children, maybe other extended family. So Simon and Andrew go home with Jesus and James and John. And I wonder how the five of them showing up at home went over with everybody. Remember, they just disappeared earlier. We might imagine Simon coming in the door and saying, "Oh, Susan, hey, Mom, what's up, everybody? We're back." No, don't be mad. I know we disappeared for a couple days and didn't call, but listen, we met this great guy. And he asked us to follow him without really any real reason, but we did. I know we left our nets and the boat on the shore. Sorry about that. Yeah, I figured somebody would have stolen them by now. Well, anyway, we hung out at the synagogue for a while and we've been helping him cast out demons. Oh, this is James and John. They're with us too. Oh, and this is Jesus, the guy we mentioned. Is there anything for lunch? Might not go over well. But maybe it's at this point that someone interrupts to tell him the bad news. Simon's mother-in-law is ill with a fever. And actually in the Greek, we get that pesky word immediately again. They immediately tell him. We all know that life in the first century was perilous. Only about half of people lived past their 30s. A simple infection could mean death. So a fever could be gravely serious. Of course, having seen Jesus heal so many people, they brought him directly to the sick woman. They brought him to her bed, a private place where men probably didn't go, where she lay ill. I'm guessing that we've all had a fever at some point in our lives. Maybe we've just had a minor fever. Maybe when we just feel a little tired and off. Maybe we've also had a bad fever. Maybe the flu. Some of us, maybe even COVID. When the chills are uncontrollable, when we can't get warm, but we also break out in a sweat, when our bones are tired, our head spins, we can't think straight, we can hardly get out of bed to go to the bathroom. Maybe we've cared for someone with a bad fever. Maybe we've watched them lie in bed suffering as we worry about the best thing to do. Maybe it was our baby who we held all through the night, terrified. Maybe it was a parent who we saw vulnerable for the first time. I was sick a few times as a kid with the usual things, chickenpox, strep throat, an ear infection. But there was only one time I remember having a bad fever. It's all sort of hazy, except I remember my mom taking my temperature at one point and then her face sort of going ashen. Apparently, she had called the pediatrician, who then recommended they get me into a cold bathtub. Do any of you remember being forced into a cold bath when you had a fever, which apparently they now say can be dangerous, so don't do that. Again, the memory is vague, but I remember our tiny 1970s bathroom with the blue bathtub and the blue sink. And I remember I was doing a lot of screaming as my mother tried to force me into the water. It was excruciating getting in that cold water. Now there are thousands of us, millions of us around the world who lie in bed with fevers, people who can't get up due to COVID or other illnesses, who can't breathe, who can't have their spouses, their parents, their children with them to hold their hand or smooth back their hair or give them an ice chip. But Jesus took this woman by the hand and raised her up. But we literally can't touch one another right now for fear of a virus, for fear of a fever, for fear that our lungs will stop working. But Jesus touches this sick person, this sick woman, and then he lifts her up. But of course, the word isn't lift, it's raises. He raises her up. Yes, a foreshadowing of the resurrection. He restores this woman to life. Now, much has been made of the fact that after the fever left her, Simon's mother-in-law gets right up and began to serve them. Now, oftentimes this has elicited one of two responses. Either, number one, great, that's what women should be doing, in the kitchen, making sandwiches for men. Oh, I kid you not, that interpretation is still out there. That's what women should be doing. Or, second interpretation, how awful and sexist that right after being sick, she just gets up and starts making sandwiches for the men. Now, the problem is, both of these readings bring our own sexist worldview to the text. We hear the word serve applied to a woman, and most of us picture her in the kitchen making dip for the Super Bowl party while the guys are sitting on the couch. But that's our lens. The reading says nothing about a kitchen or Super Bowl dip or an apron. It's not there. It just says serve. The root of the word is diakonin. Yes, the word that deacon comes from. The same word used in Mark chapter 1, verse 13, when Jesus is in the wilderness and the angels ministered to him. The angels waited on him. The angels took care of him. The angels helped him, depending on what translation you read. One biblical commentator said of Simon's mother-in-law, she was the first deacon. Now, I don't know that I'd go that far, but maybe. The truth is, though, we don't know what it means. We don't know what she got up and served, diakone. We don't know what that means. We will never know what was intended by that word or what actually happened. Maybe she did go to the kitchen and make food because she had been restored to her role in society, and that's what first century women did. Maybe she did start ministering to them in a fuller sense with leadership. Maybe she did offer hospitality as the matriarch of the household. Maybe she did take care of Jesus just as the angels had. We won't ever know. But regardless, she was restored to the community, restored to life, restored to belonging. And we can ask ourselves, how will we restore one another in this time when we still have to remain separated? How can we reach out and take one another by the hand, even though we're far away? How can we lift up those who are stuck in bed, whether literally stuck in bed or metaphorically stuck? How can we be those who serve, who minister to those who cannot get up? And when we need to be lifted up, will we be able to hold out our hand? So, the story of Simon's mother in law, in bed with a fever and yet raised, resurrected, brought back to life to serve, to minister, to be a deacon? We'll never know. In the kitchen, perhaps, or perhaps running the show. But may this story encourage us to rise up, to reach out, and to be disciples in whatever we do. Amen.